Hey y'all, James Roy here, and this is another Dynamo discussion. On today's show, I'm going to bring up a couple of penalties and just general soccer discussion points that I want to put out there. I've generally researched them, but I'd also like some feedback on if I'm right or not, or really just how this aspect of the game that I'm going to talk about works. I'm also going to talk about Thor equalizing versus FC Dallas and just generally how that match went. So let's get into it. So I had some confusion over why Hector Herrera and Amin Bassi were able to play game against FC Dallas. As someone who is new to following the MLS and really soccer in general, my understanding of the scheduling of games is pretty clear in terms of the fact that they usually take place on Saturdays. So I recently ran into some confusion with the red card rule. Against the Sounders, Bassi and Herrera both received red cards. I knew that in the Open Cup that the Dynamo are supposed to play Minnesota. And so since they played a regular season game this past week in the middle of the week against Minnesota, I thought that was that game. And so I was confused as to why they played against FC Dallas. But I have now recently discovered by looking back at the schedule that that game against Minnesota was a regular season game, which means that they served their suspensions. My next question is, and this is just more a hypothetical, it comes to mind, seeing that both Bassi and Herrera in the game against the Sounders each got a second yellow red card and a red card. Here's a hypothetical for you, and I'm going to give you why I think it might actually matter or why it might actually not. But let's say that a player is on a yellow card and they commit an offense that is worthy of a red card, but the ref gives them a yellow card, and they now either way they're ejected from the game, right? So is there any reason why it would be that big of a difference that the ref didn't award the red card vice a second yellow, which still results in a red? Looking through the rules, the only reason I see why that's actually a huge deal at all is because based on the fine system for the MLS, it doesn't really mention red cards. It just says the amount of yellow cards you carry forward. So unless a red card is 2 yellow cards by default, which it very well could be, I couldn't find anything that says that, but my understanding is that awarding a yellow vice a red just means that you're one step closer to getting a fine as a player. Other than that, I don't know if there's actually a huge difference between giving those two penalties. Once again, saying that the penalty committed warranted a red card and the player was awarded a second yellow, which either way got them ejected from the game. So I'd love some feedback on that, on someone who just knows more about soccer than I do, because I am just really curious to see if the situation even matters. If you follow me on Twitter, you will know that I had my fair share of troubles with watching the FC Dallas game, in the fact that Apple TV, I got started on it late. I was at my niece's 4th birthday. Happy birthday. It was a really fun time. And so I got started late on the game, and I started it behind. When the half hit, I went from being like 16 minutes behind to 6 minutes because I skipped the half. And then an interesting thing happened where around the 80th minute, Apple decided to jump forward on me and bring me back up to live TV. And I discovered this about 2 minutes into stoppage time. And I know what you're thinking, James, why did you not just look at the scoreboard? You probably would have noticed a difference. And that is because I was so focused on the game, I wasn't looking at the scoreboard. And so I didn't notice that it was 1-1. And I was like, that's another loss. It's going to be rough, especially rivalry game going in, but we'll recover from it. And then I looked up at the scoreboard and I was like, wait, when did we score a goal? And so I missed being there with y'all, getting a nice live reaction to, Thor's goal. But I rewound it and I got to watch it and I got to see it. And it was really close. It was really an impressive goal. I'm glad that they got it right. I'm glad they gave it to us because it was very obviously a goal. The game as a whole sticks with the same theme. It felt like a lot of the game was just possessing the ball, moving it around. I felt like there was really good ball movement in this game. There was some surprising points where I was like, with all the ball movement we got in the offensive zone, the inability to finish really hurt us in this game. This was a game where I feel like, based off what I saw, that the Dynamo should have very easily been able to win if any of their, now correct me if I'm wrong on this, because I'm really looking at Bassi's position, forward striker. I'm pretty sure that's what I'm looking to say. Bassi has the most goals at that position, and 4 out of his 5 are, penalty kicks. And then, so he has 1. None of the other players at that position have a goal. And I think that's just, it shows us the problem, which is that defensively, the Dynamo are stout. They hold their own defensively. Stephen Clark is is a goalie that's playing out of his mind, and the whole, playing defense is great, but like applying my knowledge of other sports, it just seems like you can only play defense for so long, particularly football, right? You can only play defense so long without an offense that works before the defense breaks down. And then, a smart person who is watching the game and observes it knows that it's not the defense's fault that the game was a loss. It's the offense's fault for not giving them any support, any sort of, that applies to baseball. If your pitching's great, but you're not getting run support, right? You're not going to win the game. And what's happening here is we're getting a defense that is playing well enough, I at least, to hold teams from scoring, and we're not getting enough offensive support. And if we could get that, if there was a move to be made or something that old Ben could do that could make this team able to score goals and capitalize on those, because we're getting great in the midfield with Hector Herrera, we're getting great ball movement and we're setting up these opportunities, but we're not capitalizing. And so I think, just from my amateur perspective as someone who's new to the game, that's my analysis, is that every facet of the game, possessing the ball, defense, movement in the midfield, is all great, but where the Dynamo are falling short is in the attack. When we have the ball in the box, we don't have people who can finish. If we can fix that, the Dynamo are a team that will contend for the playoffs. I don't know if it's the players on the field need to figure it out, or if there needs to be a shakeup at that position. I believe there was for this past game, but I mean, that is my observation on the Dynamo this week. Well, this has been another Dynamo discussion. Thanks for watching, and if you want to find me on social media, I am at M1 Texans fan on all social media. And if you like the Rockets, Astros, Texans, or Dynamo, you should subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I do videos on all of those teams. Thank you, and until we meet again, stay classy, Houston.